Hello, I'd like to welcome everyone to this webinar on A Little Means a Lot, Simple Ways to Improve Online Course Accessibility. My name's Jennifer Perkins. I'm an instructional designer for EKU eCampus Instructional Design Center. And first, if I could start by simply verifying if you can hear me, please use your raise hand icon at the top of the interface to show me that you can hear me. Amy Milzinski has asked, are there any captions for this webinar? Unfortunately,
Okay, I think Jennifer just went offline. Okay, she's back. Jennifer, we cannot hear you.
can you hear me now, Nadeem?
Yes, I can hear you now. The audio was cutting off.
Okay, great, thank you. It looks like most people can hear. If you cannot, please run. There's an audio speaker icon at the top that should help you to find your speaker. And if that doesn't work, there's a link there under the notes pod that you can run a diagnostic test for. Amy had asked if there are any captions for this webinar. Unfortunately, there aren't. We were relying on people if they needed captions to let us know in advance. So we will not have captions. We should have them when we provide the recording later, however. I should tell you the webinar is being recorded, and in that case, we will have the captions available. You'll also notice from the notes area that I will be providing a link to the presentation slides with links to web pages that I'll be showing you at the end of the session. I also want to let you know that I'm providing some audio recordings, and I'm using the JAWS screen reader as the screen reader that I used for the recordings. JAWS is the most popular screen reader. It's not the only one out there, but it's the most popular being used. I want to let you know that A Little Means a Lot presentation has as much to do with universal design as it does with accessibility. The idea behind this webinar is to let you know that when you plan your course or even plan content for a web page, when you plan a Word document, you need to be thinking about the needs of everyone who's going to be in your audience, not simply the students or the audience who has everything fully functioning, vision, hearing, and so on. Every audience member should be thought about as things are planned. You can contact me at any time. In fact, let me move to the next slide. My email address is jennifer.perkins@eku.edu. You can follow me on Twitter. I will tell you that that's my personal Twitter username, so you'll see things besides accessibility topics on there, so be prepared for that. And also, if during the webinar you have questions, use the Q&A pod, and what I will aim to do is go through the presentation first and then answer your questions at the end. If something is absolutely urgent, of course, I'll try to take care of those questions as the presentation proceeds. But if it's a general accessibility question, please just add it to the pod, and then I'll try to answer at the end. If there are too many questions at the end, then I will provide answers to all remaining questions on the IDC website. So let's get started. I've given you my email address. I want to share a little bit more about me, though, by just giving you a picture of myself so that you can see what I do on an everyday basis at EKU. So I'm going to show you this picture, and this should tell you exactly what I do at EKU. Okay, I'm guessing that some of you may be a little confused by this. Let me see if I can make this photo a little bit better. That may or may not help you. Let me try just a little bit more. Again, this is showing you what I do at EKU on a daily basis. That hopefully may help, but let me enhance it just a bit more. There I am. I'm Jen Perkins. I'm sitting in front of a computer creating instructional materials on Blackboard. I also want to show you a video clip from a course that I helped design with an instructor, and he has just a really good message that he's speaking about in this video. So I want to show you, it's a very short clip, and I want you to take a look at it. Let me resize it so you can see it a little bit better here. And I'm going to play it and listen very carefully to his message. Okay, if that didn't work so well for you, let me try another one here. This is the same video, and I'll try to enhance it a bit. Okay, hopefully that helped just a little bit for you to be able to hear the message. And lastly, I'm going to show you a little bit from my resume. It's just a clip from the resume, so take a very quick glance at it to get a good idea of what I've done in the past. Okay, does that show it to you pretty well? Let me enhance that just a little bit for you. Hopefully that's better with some headings and list items. What I'm trying to do here is show you that when you provide information on the web, whether it's a document, whether it's an image, whether it's a video, if you are not doing things to help the accessibility aspect, if you're not helping those who have hearing issues through captions, if you are not helping those who have vision issues and need screen readers through describing your images, if you are not structuring your documents with headers and list items so that people can see the actual structure of the document properly, then you are not meeting your full audience. And I think as instructors, you want to make that happen. You want every possible audience member to understand what it is you're trying to instruct them on. So I have here about 10 tips, and these are, I'm not going to get into details on how to do things, but what I do is I provide the general idea, and then I provide links to resources that you can use yourself to figure out how to make these things happen. They're easy to do. I won't say that they are quick to do necessarily, but they are easy to do, and if you do them as you're planning your course or planning a web page, then it makes things much better for everyone. So let's get started with the first tip. The first tip is something that is very simple, but that people tend to forget. Check your spelling. When you are creating an online course site, check your spelling as much as possible. You expect this of your students, and you need to do it yourself. Let me give you an example of why this is important. I'm going to show you a sample announcement that might be in a course site. Okay? You see the header, English 101 is now open, and then there's text underneath. If you read the text, if you visually can see this, then you can see that there are misspellings. But visually speaking, you don't probably have a big problem. You can figure out what's going on. Let me play this audio for you from a screen reader, from the JAWS screen reader, that shows you what a screen reader is going to let a blind person hear from this announcement.
Heading Level 1 N101 is now open. English 101 is not open for your viewing. Take time before beginning segments to review the site and ask questions to the course manager on the forum.
Okay, now for you visually, you could figure that out pretty quickly what was going on. For the person who's listening to the text, as you could hear, it would take much longer to figure out what was actually being said because the screen reader is attempting to pronounce things that are not that easy to pronounce. So spelling to me is number one. Always be sure that you spell things accurately. Next is to provide correct semantic structure in your documents and in any items that you include. What do I mean by semantic structure? Well, let me give you an example. Let's say that I am purchasing a house, and the one item in that house that I absolutely want so much is a beautiful fireplace, because I can picture myself in the wintertime, not this winter because we haven't had that much cold weather, but in a winter time when it's 20 degrees, the flames are coming from the fireplace. I'm sitting in front of it with hot cocoa, popcorn, and it's a wonderful scene. I find that house with that beautiful fireplace. And winter rolls around, I go to start the fire in the fireplace, and I realize that Unfortunately, this fireplace is non-functional. It's absolutely gorgeous, but it won't work. That's what I mean by semantic structure. Your documents must be structured in a way that you have proper styling. The WebAIM webpage, which WebAIM is an organization that means web accessibility in mind, states here, as with the original intention of the web, screen readers and other assistive technologies largely ignore visual styling and focus primarily on semantics and structure. So when you plan a page, plan a document, don't plan it so much for how beautiful it's going to be at first, but whether or not you're going to be able to reach everyone with that content. Here's an example of maybe a page from a syllabus. You've got your student learning outcomes, you've got your Module 1 outcomes. It looks like there are some headers there. It looks like there are some list items. But when I play this using the JAWS screen reader, listen to what the page sounds like.
Student learning outcomes. The goal of this course is to effectively research elements of literacy development. Module 1 objectives. Students completing this module will be able to 1. List and explain the 8 components of literacy development. 2.
Okay, you can hear there, it actually sounds okay. I mean, it's reading top to bottom, left to right. Unfortunately, that's the only way it will be able to read in a screen reader. So the student using the screen reader has no idea there are headings, has no real idea that there is a list there because it has been styled improperly. What the student should be seeing is something that looks like this, which looks very similar to the prior, but it's been styled properly. Here's what the screen reader will read in this case.
Explain the 8 components of literacy development. 2. Analyze.
Sorry about that. Let me start it over again.
Page has 2 headings and no links. Untitled document heading Level 1 Student Learning Outcomes. The goal of this course is to effectively research elements of literacy development. Heading Level 2 Module 1 Objectives. Students completing this module will be able to list of 3 items. 1.
Okay, here you can tell the screen reader is telling the user there are some headers here. There are list items here. In the prior case, the student had no idea. They had to read from the top to the bottom to get the content. So you need to be thinking of that and planning in the proper way. I'm going to show you a very quick 1-minute video on how you can make this happen in Microsoft Word if you are not used to styling properly. So let's load this up. This is a small video. And let's get it going for you. Okay, hopefully that showed you a little bit about how to style properly in Word. And what that will do if you're providing headings and list items accurately, when a screen reader user listens, they'll hear that there are headings and so on, but they can also use a shortcut that will show them where their headers are and where their list items are. And this will make it so much easier for those users. You'll notice that the presentation is dwelling a lot on screen reader users, and I'm not trying to focus only on screen reader users, but for so many aspects of online courses, it is the students with vision disabilities that need that assistance, and that's why I'm doing this. Okay, some resources for learning about semantic structure can be found using these links, which you can't currently link on, but when I provide you the link to the presentation at the end of the session, you can go to that presentation and you can link on any of these resources and find that information. Now, I showed you how to provide proper styling in Word. You may be thinking, well, if I'm working in Blackboard, I want to be able to put that in my text editor. You can't just copy and paste from Word to your text editor because you've probably seen that it often provides a big mess. If you style your Word document properly, you can use resources like these I've listed here, HTML Cleaner and Word HTML, to provide you with very good HTML that you obtain from that Word document. As an example, let's say that this is part of a syllabus I have, and I've got my headers correct, I've got some embedded links in there, I've got list items, and I want to get the HTML for that so that I can make my content in Blackboard HTML content. I would copy this information, just copy it straight from Word, and then I would go to a source like htmlcleaner.com, which is the screen you're seeing now. I'd paste the Word content into the left side of the page, and on the right side you will see the proper HTML that you would then embed in your Blackboard item. Every now and then there are things you have to think about. Images do not transfer over. Sometimes the headers you have to play with a little bit. But overall, this provides really good code for you. So you can create your content in Word and then basically convert it using a source like this, even if you don't know HTML very well. Next tip is to question your need for tables, particularly layout tables. I work with a lot of instructors on a lot of courses, and many of them in their syllabi and elsewhere like to use tables for layout because for someone who has good vision, tables often provide a really good way to see what's going on. So in a syllabus, you might see something like this. You might have a table where you've got your list of modules, you've got your list of activities, and you've got your points for each activity. Now, you can probably, if you can see this, you can probably see and figure out how things correspond. Let me show you what a screen reader is going to tell a vision impaired person, however.
Module activities points module 1 activity 2 activity 3 20 30 40 module 2 activity 1 activity.
Okay, you can tell this layout table is of no use at all to someone who's using a screen reader because there's no way to correspond the activities with the respective points. So how do you resolve that? Well, there are different ways to do this. What I have begun doing, however, for a lot of syllabi is I now use lists instead of tables. Something like this. I might state in a header what's going on. I'm talking about module activities and points. I use a series of Module 1, Module 2, Module 3, and so on. Then I use another series of lists for each module so that when the screen reader reads this, it will, let me see here, I don't think I have that particular screen reader recording. But what it is going to state is that there are list items, and within those list items, there are other list items, and the screen reader user will understand what is going on, much more so than with a layout table. So what I'm trying to get across here is that layout tables are typically not good items to include in your documents. If you can possibly get away from them, do so. If you do use them, be sure to mark what your header row is, and there's a way to do that in Microsoft Word. And if you're doing it in HTML, do the same. Mark your header columns. But if you can get away from layout tables, do that. Next, if you have hyperlinks, try to write descriptive links within the text itself. Let me show you what I'm talking about. You've probably seen this type of instructional content, or maybe you've written this yourself. Click here to do this, click here to do this, and here's a big long website for you to link to. Now, if you can visually see this, you know what to do. I have a problem with this for two reasons. One is we've got way too much text in this instructional content. As you know, in an online course, there's way too much text to begin with. You want to cut down on text all you can. So why do you need the click here's? And why do you need the long website? When you could have something that looks like this. Read the instructions, view the video, and read about add-on certifications. When the screen reader user is looking at this, they can bring up a shortcut to see where all the links are in their page. This is what they will see. Read the instructions, view the video, and add-on certifications available in your state. Now, in the prior example, when they brought up that shortcut, this is what they'd see. Click here, and it's going to read the entire website for them. So they won't know in context what you're talking about. Where does click here go? They will only know that if you have included the hyperlink within your text. And it's very easy to do. Again, I'm not going to get into how to make that happen, but if you use the resources that I have in this presentation, you can make that happen yourself. The next tip has to do with images to some extent, in that if you have images in your document or in a Blackboard item or in some kind of file, you have to add alternative text to it so that the person using the screen reader knows what you're talking about. And I should get at the fact that you should include alternative text that has a purpose. At the very beginning, you saw a picture of me in front of a computer. And I told you what I wanted you to come away with was what I do at EKU on a daily basis. If I had used the alternative text, woman sitting at a computer, yeah, you'd know that I am a woman and I'm sitting at a computer, but that doesn't really tell you what I do all day long. So what you would want to do is be a little bit more detailed, but don't get too detailed. And let's see if I've got a slide. If I didn't include any text, the screen reader wouldn't even know there's an image, which is horrible. If I didn't include any text, it might even read the file name, which is horrible. If I included good alternative text, however, it would be something like this. Instructional designer Jen Perkins at laptop developing instructional materials for a Blackboard course site. Now, it may not even need to be quite that detailed, because you want to keep it down to about the size of a tweet. You don't want to get any more than about 120 characters. But you want to be as detailed as you possibly can and get the purpose of the image across. The Penn State website has a very good accessibility web page. As you may remember, Penn State was involved in a lawsuit a few years ago that was pretty severe, and they have made sure now that they know about accessibility. And they state that when you're providing alternative text, a good rule of thumb is to include what you might tell someone over the phone. So if you were explaining an image to somebody over the phone and you're in a hurried conversation, you're stating to them what the purpose is and you're getting the message across very succinctly. Just as illustrations here, I'm going to show you, this is probably the one case in this webinar where I kind of show you how to do something. To add alt text or alternative text to an image in Microsoft Word, look in the upper right corner of this slide. You would right-click your image, you'd insert your image in Word, right-click it, choose Format Picture, and place your description in the description field. Do not place it in the title field, because that's not where the screen reader picks up the alt text. It picks it up out of the description field. If you're in Blackboard and you insert an image, you would insert using the little image icon. A window such as that appearing in the lower left corner of the screen will pop up, and you would again use the image description field to put your alt text in. You can fill out the title field, but again, the screen reader does not use that for alt text. It might or might not read that area, but it will always read the description field. This is what, if you looked at the HTML once you have inserted your alt text in, this is what it would look like. You would have alt, you would have your code, and you'd have alt equals double quotation mark, whatever you wrote in there, and then double quotation mark. And that is what the screen reader is going to read for you. Here are some resources for learning about alt text, and again, you can link to those once you have access to the presentation at the end. Now, when you are presenting text, always use text. Do not decide that you're going to take a screenshot of some text you saw on a blog or on some website and then show that to students simply using the screenshot image. Simply because the screen reader can't read that image unless you have added alt text. A good example of what I'm talking about here is this table. An instructor a couple of years ago wanted to include this table from a textbook in one of her online courses. And it's a very good table. It's got some really good content. The problem is, of course, as you can see, if you can see this visually, there is a lot of text and the screen reader would not be able to pick this up without alt text being added, and there's just way too much text to be adding alt text. Our solution for this was we still provided the image, but we told students if you can't read the text in this image, link to this page where I had recreated the table for the instructor in HTML. And yes, this is a layout table, but I used a proper header row, header columns, and the like, so that a screen reader user should be able to read this without much problem. Always, of course, cite the source that you got this from. Now, this is a lot of trouble. I mean, it's a lot of text to have to type out, and you may not be willing to do that. If that's the case, you probably shouldn't be using the table to begin with. And there are ways to make things a little bit easier. There are resources in which you can extract text from images. Microsoft OneNote is probably the top one that I would mention. If you've got Microsoft Office, you probably have OneNote, and there is a tool in there that allows you to grab an image and extract the text out. WindowEyes is another screen reader that has a tool called Virtual View that does something similar. And then there are several optical character recognition tools online that will do this for you. I will say that when you use one of these tools, don't expect perfection. The text that that results is probably not going to be perfect, and you are going to have to do some editing. But it makes your job a little bit easier. Next tip, rely on elements other than color, shape, size to convey information. Okay, we all know what this image represents. If you can see it here, it's the U.S. flag, and we all know that the U.S. flag is red, white, and blue. The problem is you see this flag in a different way from about 5% of men and a smaller percentage of women who see the flag in this way. And in that case, it's not really red, white, and blue. So when you tell students to select a red button to continue, if 5 out of 100 men have basic color blindness, that's what they're going to see. Something that is not red, white, or blue, or any other color except for this odd color that I suppose they would think of as red. So you should not be using color to emphasize something or to try to define something. The same goes with using bold, with using italics, with using underlining. When a screen reader reads this, it's not going to pick up on any of these emphases. And let me play what a screen reader will tell you. I believe this is the right recording. Let's see.
Be sure that you enroll in the course no later than June 30th. If you do not do this, you will not be able to take the course again until the following year. Again, June 30th is the final day to enroll.
Okay, here you can tell the screen reader does not recognize any emphasis here. So you may, for the visual user, yes, they can see all this emphasis. And in fact, if you put this much emphasis on your page, you're making a big mistake because nobody's going to pay attention to it. If, however, you use something like this, where you insert a small icon, a small image that shows emphasis, and of course you include that alternative text that says important or something like that, then the students, whether they have visual capabilities or not, will understand what you're talking about. And in fact, let me see if I can find, yes, here's the audio that would go with that.
Graphic important. Be sure that you enroll in the course no later than June 30th.
Okay, here the screen reader is telling the user this is an important statement, which is what you want. And it's excellent for students who see that graphic as well. You could also simply write important, enroll in the course no later than June 30th, and in that case the screen reader will read
important, enroll in the course no later than June 30th.
So for everyone, they can either see the word important or they can hear the word important. I personally like using a small icon because that really can catch the eye of those who have visual capabilities, but it also, as long as you insert alternative text, reaches the screen reader users as well. I've got here some links to some color blindness resources. These may come in handy for you if you want to see sort of what people see when they don't see colors in the normal way. Next, we get to the use of video and audio. We should be including captions and transcriptions when we use video and audio. Captions for videos, transcriptions for audio. Why are we doing this? For one thing, we have to do it for legal reasons. Section 508 of the Rehabilitation Act requires that if institutions receive federal funding, they have to follow certain accessibility standards, and providing captions in your videos is one of those standards. You also saw at the beginning when we had the video, and in fact I've got it here. Again, this is going to be small, but I think you'll get the point. When we play the video and there are no captions, if you can't hear anything, this lecture makes absolutely no sense for you. However, when you play the video, and let me expand it a little here, and there are captions, even if you can't hear, you can get the exact message that he's giving. Now, captions are good, of course, for those who don't hear well, but they also come in handy for basically everyone else in your audience. They can help students focus, they can help them retain information, they can help if the instructor did not do a great job with the audio and the quality of the audio is poor. If you have an accent, or you say you come from a different region of the country or another country and students have difficulty with your accent, the captions can work wonders. And I think we can all agree to this. I mean, I watch a lot of things and turn captions on just because I can comprehend the information much better. How do you caption? I can't get into that in a 1-hour webinar, but there are a couple of things to keep in mind. First, if you write your script before recording, that's usually the best way to get the captions in, because what you can do is you write your script, you record your video or audio, then if it's a video, you can go to YouTube, load your video to YouTube, and then YouTube has a captioning option in which basically you copy your transcript, you paste it into YouTube, and YouTube will time it out for you. You may have to make a few changes. You go in and edit just like you would edit anything else, but typically it does a very good job with the timing. If you put a video directly into a PowerPoint file, there is a plug-in for PowerPoint called STAMP Stamp, and you can actually caption the video within PowerPoint. And there are within the e-learning tools, many of them, such as Camtasia from TechSmith or Adobe Captivate, have captioning tools built within them. So you can actually do your captioning within that e-learning tool. If you didn't write your script before recording, you have a couple of options. Well, you can, of course, go through your video at the end and type up your transcript yourself. That's going to be hard. You can also upload it to a tool like YouTube and allow for automatic captioning, but please do not stop at the point of I want automatic captioning, because as you have most likely noticed, automatic captions in YouTube typically result in very poor captions. So you have to then go into those automatic captions, edit them, and correct them. It will require quite a bit of work, but the fact that you got maybe 30% of it right automatically should save you a little bit of time. The other idea, of course, is to contact, if you work at a different institution, contact your institution's disability service office, see if they have someone who does captioning. And here at EKU, if you don't know, we have in the Instructional Design Center student workers who do transcribing so that they could provide you with the transcript, and then you can do the captioning using that transcript. Now, we do have a priority queue. If a student has filed for accommodations, then those courses with videos would get priority. eCampus courses, of course, would come next because our student workers are working for eCampus. And then those instructors who have videos using, who are not in eCampus would receive the lowest priority. But we can, as long as we've got time, we can get the job done for you. Next to the last tip I have for you, use Microsoft Office's built-in accessibility tools. I'm guessing that the majority of those in attendance today use Microsoft Word and Microsoft PowerPoint. And they have some basic accessibility tools that really can help a lot. In Microsoft Word, and these examples I'm showing you use Word 2013 on a PC. If you go to your document and go one step back into the info page, you can check for accessibility issues. If you have absolute errors, such as you forgot to put your alternative text in an image, you'll get a list of errors. It will also provide warnings, things that aren't necessarily errors but could pretty easily become an error, and tips, things that might help you along the way. So that's one thing you can do. You write your document, you save it, you run this accessibility check, and it can really help you to get rid of any errors you might have. You can also go to the View navigation pane, and it will show you all your headers so that you can ensure that you have styled your headers properly, that you haven't skipped from header 1 to header 3, that you have it in the steps that it needs to be. With PowerPoint, you can view the outline view or the outline pane of your PowerPoint slides to make sure that you have included a title for every slide, which you should do because screen reader users need to know that what slide they're on, and they should be unique titles if you possibly can make them unique, and also that your content is there. If you have not used a Microsoft PowerPoint style or format, a layout, and you just decided, oh, I'm just going to insert text boxes, none of your text boxes will be readable by a screen reader. I hate to tell you that, and I personally have made a mistake in the past of trying to style my own slides by just entering text boxes. So I know I've got some lectures out there that are not readable by screen readers. But if you possibly can at this point, stop doing that, because if you just insert a text box, no screen reader can read that text. Next and last, hone your accessibility skills through your own personal development. Take your own personal initiative, just as you did today in attending this session. One thing you can do is find books on universal design and on accessibility. Horton and Quisenberry's A Web for Everyone is an excellent book. It's short, but it's to the point. It uses personas that really get the message across as to why universal design and accessibility on the web are so important. There are plenty of websites out there that offer free information for you. The WebAIM website, which I mentioned before, is probably the best website for learning basics. It gets into alternative text, it gets into hyperlinks and that type of thing. It's wonderful. There are some consulting companies out there, SSB BART Group, Paciello Group, that offer free webinars. One of them, Paciello Group, offers a color contrast analyzer. I didn't get into color contrast on pages, but that is something that needs to be considered when you're creating documents. Utah State has a tool called Salsa that allows you to create your syllabus in HTML, and it will wind up being fully accessible. The only problem with it is that the syllabus ends up being stored on their server. And if you don't like that idea, then it's out of the question. But if you don't mind, then it will provide a properly styled HTML document for you. And then lots of universities are really into the accessibility mindfulness. University of Minnesota, University of Washington, and Penn State all have wonderful web pages devoted to accessibility. Trainings are out there. If you have professional development funds, you might consider going to the WebAIM campus. They have in-person trainings in Logan, Utah. They are expensive, which is why I mentioned professional development funds, but they have them at several times of the year, and you sit for a day or two and are just loaded up on content. DQ University is a training site that's provided by a consulting company. I have a personal subscription to it for a few more months. They offer up to 12 different courses on web accessibility, going from the very basics to much more complicated stuff. They do cost, but if you have a disability, they will provide you the courses at no cost, which is just a wonderful, wonderful thing. Each course costs, I think, about $40. But if you can get some sort of funding for that, you might consider that. And also lynda.com is a training site. They have some courses out there on accessibility. If you are a member of Lexington Public Library, you already have a subscription to lynda.com. And if you have your own personal subscription, you can get these courses through that as well. Also, and last, be part of a professional learning community. Whether you want to get together with a group of other instructors or other staff members and just talk about different aspects of web accessibility, or whether you want to just leverage a tool like Twitter, which is what I do. I follow a lot of the experts on accessibility, and I get a lot of really good information. You might go to my profile and look at the people I follow, and you can determine who are the experts in the field. Start following them. I want to finish this webinar by quoting something from the United Nations website. Disability resides in the society, not in the person. And that's, I think, what if you take away anything from this webinar, it is that if we consider everyone, every member of our society when we're planning our courses and planning our web pages, and think about the fact that at some point in time, whether we like it or not, every one of us is going to have a disability. We can plan for all of society and not just plan our content for those who can most easily access it. We can plan it and make it such that everyone can access it pretty easily. Now I'm going to give you the link to the slides for the presentation. If you go to tinyurl.com/accessibility-basics, that will give you the presentation slides with all the links that I've been showing you on these slides so you can learn more about accessibility. If you would like trainings on things like how to use Word to make your documents more accessible, or how to use PowerPoint for greater accessibility, contact me and I'll see what I can do. I'll contact my manager, Steve Dwinells, and see if we can set up some trainings for that. If you have any just individual questions, please email me at jennifer.perkins@eku.edu. Feel free to follow me on Twitter. And I don't believe, I'm looking at the questions and answers pane, and I don't really see anything that needs to be answered. If anybody has a question right now, if you could post it, I would be more than happy to answer. And again, the accessibility slides are at tinyurl.com/accessibility-basics. Mary Ellen mentions, what about exams? I'm not sure what you mean, Mary Ellen. Can you expand? Leslie asks, does the library have the book A Web for Everyone? I have not checked the library myself, so I doubt it, but you could check. Your public library, I kind of doubt, has it as well, but it's accessible on I have the link to the company website, and it's also accessible on Amazon. But you might ask the library about getting it. And let's see, Mary Ellen says, I have a student who uses a reader for multiple choice exams. Mary Ellen, do they have trouble with the reader? Should it be set up like headers? Oh, okay, I see what you're talking about. If it's set up, I'm assuming you mean that the exam is set up in Blackboard. If that's the case, I would say it all depends on the situation. If you're giving them an essay question where you may be using headers, then yes. But Blackboard, and I didn't bring this in earlier, Blackboard in the text editor has formatting options similar to Word, where you can choose whether you want it to be paragraph format, which would be your basic body text, header 1, actually it's head, how do they word it? Head 1, head 2, head 3, which is the most important header, and then the secondary headers, and so on. So it really depends on the type of question. If it's a multiple choice question, no, you would not need headers. You send a digital Word document to the accessibility office. Okay, if it's a Word document, then yes, it should be using headers. You should be styling it appropriately for that screen reader. Does anyone else have questions? I'm looking here to see if I've missed anything. I don't believe I have. I am planning to give this session on ground in about a week. So if you missed anything here, or if you don't want to watch the recording and really prefer to attend on ground, that will be made available to you within about a week or sometime during the month of March. I want to thank you all for attending. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to email me. And thank you so much.